The cell door slammed shut like a gunshot in the dead of night, echoing through the concrete bowels of San Quentin, and Joshua's heart exploded into 1,000 jagged shards. "You're one of them, aren't you?" the hulking inmate snarled, his breath hot and rank against Joshua's neck, pinning him against the cold bars with a forearm like a battering ram. In that suffocating instant, as the fluorescent buzz overhead flickered like a dying star, Joshua realized the truth he'd buried deeper than his own screams. Coming out here, in this hellhole of forgotten men, might just be the last confession he'd ever make alive. Joshua had always known the world could chew you up and spit you out, but nothing prepared him for the way California sunshine turned to ash the day the cuffs clicked around his wrists. It was a botched robbery at a corner bodega in Oakland, desperation born from eviction notices and a barista gig that barely covered ramen. He'd needed the cash to vanish, to chase whispers of a life where being gay didn't mean dodging fists from your own blood. But the judge's gavel fell like fate's cruel punchline: 5 years in San Quentin, the Rock of the Bay, where the Pacific's roar mocked you from afar. As the prison van rattled over the Golden Gate, Joshua pressed his forehead to the grated window, tasting salt that wasn't just from the sea. His reflection stared back, a ghost with hollow cheeks and eyes like storm clouds, the same eyes his brother Ethan had once called faggot soft. Ethan. The name alone twisted like a knife in Joshua's gut. Big brother. Golden boy. The one who'd shielded him from their old man's belt when they were kids scraping by in a Fresno trailer park. But that was before Ethan found Jesus at 19, traded flannel shirts for megachurch suits, and started quoting Leviticus like it was gospel truth. Joshua remembered the night it shattered, 16 and fumbling with a boy behind the bleachers at prom, only for Ethan to catch them. "You're sick? This ain't us. This ain't family." The words had burned hotter than the cigarette Ethan flicked at his feet, the shame rooting deep like California wildfire. Ethan had outed him to their folks that same week, turning whispers into a family eviction. Joshua out on the streets, backpacks slung over one shoulder, while Ethan got the prodigal son welcome and a scholarship to some Bible college in Texas. San Quentin swallowed him whole on intake day. The air reeked of bleach and despair, guards barking orders like drill sergeants on bad acid. Strip search. Delousing. The mandatory shave that left his scalp prickling under the fluorescent glare. They issued him the jumpsuit, cedar blue, stiff as cardboard, and a bunk in Block C. The yard for non-violence, though everyone knew lines blurred fast here. Joshua kept his head down, eyes on the scuffed linoleum, memorizing the rhythm of boots on metal grates. Survival 101. Don't look too long. Don't smile too sweet. Don't let them see the softness Ethan had beaten out of you. But softness had a way of seeping through cracks. It started in the library, that fluorescent-lit tomb of dog-eared paperbacks and men pretending to read. Joshua volunteered for shelving duty just to breathe something other than sweat and regret. That's where he met Marco, wiry Latino with ink-black hair shaved into a fade, tattoos curling like vines up his neck from a life of Chicano street art in East LA. Marco was in for distribution, coke running through veins of the city like bad blood, but his hands were gentle when he handed Joshua a worn copy of Giovanni's Room. "You ever feel like you're drowning in your own skin?" Marco asked, voice low as the hum of the AC, his brown eyes locking on Joshua's with a spark that wasn't just fluorescent. Joshua swallowed, fingers brushing Marco's in the exchange. Every damn day. It was the first truth he'd spoken since the van ride. Marco didn't flinch. didn't recoil. Instead, he leaned in, breath warm against Joshua's ear. Then let's swim, hermano. Ain't no lifeguard in here but us. They fell into it slow. Like contraband slipped under a mattress, stolen glances in the chow line. Fingers grazing during yard time when the fog rolled in off the bay like a merciful shroud. Marco talked about his abuela's tamales. The murals he'd paint if he ever got out. The way the desert sun baked sins out of you back home. Joshua spilled fragments. The trailer park Christmases with plastic trees. Ethan's betrayal like a fresh bruise. The parade of one-night stands in Oakland dive bars that left him emptier than before. I thought love was just a punch you learn to duck, Joshua confessed one night. Their bunks creaking close in the dark. Whispers threading through snores like secrets. Marco's laugh was soft thunder. Nah. Mijo. Love's the hand that pulls you up after. And then his lips were on Joshua's, tentative, tasting of contraband tobacco and hope. The kiss igniting something feral and tender in the pit of Joshua's stomach. In that cell block shadows, with the world reduced to chain link and concrete, they carved out a fragile Eden. Stolen touches under threadbare blankets, bodies mapping each other like Braille in the black hours. Marco's fingers tracing the scar on Joshua's cheek. From your brother? And Joshua nodding, the ache easing just a fraction under that gaze. But San Quentin wasn't built for gardens. Was a grinder, chewing souls into dust. The first crack came from the Aryans, pale ghosts with swastika tats prowling the yard like wolves scenting blood. Word spread fast. The new fish from Oakland was soft, bunking with the cholos, whispering sweet nothings after lights out. Fairy's got a boyfriend, they'd jeer, spitting tobacco juice at Joshua's boots during rec time. He ignored it, chin up, but the fear gnawed like rust. Marco taught him the codes: walk with purpose, eye contact like a blade, never turn your back. They smell fear. They feast, Marco said, his hands steady on Joshua's shoulder. The anchor in the storm. Love bloomed fierce in that barren soil. Though, notes folded into book pages. A shared cigarette in the blind spot behind the laundry carts. Marco's voice humming rancheras low when nightmares clawed Joshua awake. For the first time since Ethan's words branded him, Joshua felt seen, not as a stain on the family name, but as whole. When we get out, Marco murmured one dawn, fingers laced with Joshua's under the bunk. We'll drive Route 1. Windows down, ocean on our left. No looking back. Joshua believed him. The dream a lifeline threading through the monotony of counts and lockdowns. Then the betrayal hit like a shank in the showers. It was laundry day. Steam thick as regret. When Rico, Marco's celly, a wiry enforcer with eyes like shattered glass, cornered Joshua by the dryers. Your boy's playing you. Ese recogiste? Voice slicing through the hum of machines. Marco's got a deal going, trading favors with the guards for early parole. You're just collateral. Keeps the Aryans off his back. Joshua laughed it off at first, a brittle sound echoing off tiles. But Rico shoved a crumpled note into his fist, Marco's handwriting, scrawled to a CO about handling the fag problem for extra yard time. The world tilted. Joshua stumbled back to the block, note burning in his pocket like contraband fire. That night, when Marco reached for him in the dark, Joshua recoiled. Is it true? The words choked out, raw as vomit. Marco's face crumpled in the moonlight sliver through bars, guilt etching lines deeper than his tats. It was nothing. Just talk. To protect us. But the lie hung heavy. The betrayal a mirror to Ethan's family. Lover. All the same poison. Joshua turned away. The bunk a chasm. Tears silent on his pillow. Wasn't a hand up, it was a noose you tied yourself. Weeks blurred into a gray haze. Joshua withdrew. A ghost haunting his own skin. Dodging Marco's pleading eyes in the yard. The library a sanctuary turned minefield. The Aryans circled closer. Their taunts sharpening to threats. Wetback's trash now, your turn. Princess. Solitude became his armor. But cracks spiderwebbed. Sleepless nights replayed Ethan's voice. You're sick, overlapping Marco's whispers. A symphony of shame. He wrote letters he never sent, to his mom. Begging forgiveness for the boy he'd been, to Ethan. Cursing the brother who'd sold him out for salvation. The high tide of hell crashed on transfer day. Rumors swirled of a new intake from Folsom, hard cases shuffled for overcrowding. Joshua was in the chow hall, poking at mystery meat under the clang of trays, when the doors swung open. Guards herded in the fresh meat, orange jumpsuits stark against the blues. And there, at the end of the line, shackles clinking like bad karma, stood Ethan. Joshua's fork clattered to the floor. Time fractured his brother's face. Older now at 32. Etched with lines from Texas sun and whatever demons had landed him here. Ethan's eyes. Those same storm clouds. Scanned the room. Landing on Joshua like a thunderclap. The air thickened. Inmates sensing the drama. Heads turning like vultures. Ethan froze. Mouth parting in a gasp that echoed Joshua's own from years ago. Josh. The word was a wound. Raw and disbelieving. Joshua's legs betrayed him. Carrying him across the hall on autopilot. Past stares and smirks. Up close. Ethan looked hollowed, buzz cut graying at the temples. A fresh shiv scar puckering his jaw. The megachurch polish stripped to prison grit. What the fuck are you doing here? Joshua spat. Voice a whip crack in the din. Ethan's chains rattled as he straightened. Eyes glistening with something perilously close to tears. Manslaughter. Bar fight in Austin. Guy came at me with a bottle. I didn't mean. He trailed off. The confession hanging like smoke. But it was the next words that gutted Joshua. God forgive me. But seeing you here, it's like he's answering a prayer I never had the balls to say. Joshua laughed. A jagged bark that drew whistles from the tables. Prayer? The one who prayed me out of the house. The old rage surged. Hot as Fresno summer. Fists balling at his sides. Inmates leaned in. The hall a coliseum. Marco watched from across the room. Face unreadable. But Joshua couldn't look, couldn't risk another fracture. Ethan's voice dropped. Urgent. I was wrong. Just so fucking wrong. After you left, I chased that Holy Ghost bullshit to bury the guilt. But it ate me alive. Lost the wife. The church gig. Ended up slinging sermons for meth money. He swallowed. Chains glinting. I've been searching for you. Letters bounced back. Then this. A nod to the walls. As if San Quentin were divine comedy. Joshua's chest heaved. The betrayal of blood clashing with the pole of flesh. You shamed me. outed me like I was your sin to confess. And now you want absolution? In here. The words trembled, laced with the ache of lost years, is from the brother who'd once shared comic books under blankets. Ethan stepped closer, guards twitching but holding. Not absolution. But a chance. To say I'm sorry. For the boy I failed. Those shared eyes. Brim now. A mirror Joshua couldn't shatter. The hall hushed. Even the hard cases holding breath for the prodigal reunion. In that suspended heartbeat, Joshua glimpsed the kid Ethan had been, before the belt, before the Bible, before the fracture. But trust was a luxury San Quentin didn't afford. Sorry don't fix chains. Ethan, he whispered, turning away as the buzzer blared for lockdown. Yet as the cell door clanged behind him, the ghost of that gaze lingered, a hook in his resolve. The days that followed were a pressure cooker, steam hissing from every seam. Ethan got bunked 2 blocks over, but the yard was neutral ground, a concrete ocean where sharks schooled. Joshua avoided him at first, sticking to Marco's shadow despite the rift, the two of them orbiting like wary moons. Marco tried bridging, family's blood, just thicker than this concrete. Talk to him. But Joshua's retort was acid, blood's what cuts deepest. So, proximity bred collision. It happened in the weight yard, iron clanging like war drums, when Ethan approached during free weights. Sweat slick and shirtless, his torso a map of prison ink, crosses and thorns. Ironic penance. Just 5 minutes, he pleaded, spotting Joshua on bench press, the bar heavy as regret. Joshua relented, racking the weights with a grunt, wiping his face on his hem. They sat on the bleachers, fog muting the world to graze. Ethan started halting, the years apart, his spiral into fire and brimstone preaching masking the queer panic he'd buried since their Fresno days. I saw it in you. Just that. Wait. And it scared me, 'cause I felt it too. With a farmhand, summer before college. I ran so hard from it. I ran you under the bus. Joshua's breath hitched, the revelation a bombshell in his chest. Gay. The word tasted foreign, laced with Ethan's old venom turned inward. Ethan nodded, gaze on the razor wire horizon. But maybe. Doesn't matter. I chose the lie, 'cause it was easier. Safer. But it poisoned everything. He reached out, peasant, hand hovering before dropping. Coming here. It's karma's joke. But maybe it's a reset. Joshua's walls cracked, fissures widening with each word. He thought of Marco's betrayal. The note like Ethan's old flick of the cigarette, protection masked as poison. Reset, he echoed. Bitter. You think words erase the streets I slept on? The tricks I turned to eat? Ethan's face crumpled. No. But actions might. And then, in a move that stunned the yard silent, he pulled a small, folded paper from his waistband, smuggled, against regs. Read it later. This. For you. Joshua pocketed it, pulse thundering, as the whistle blew end of rec. Back in his cell, alone with the rustle of paper, he unfolded the letter. Ethan's scrawl. Shaky, I renounce it all, the shame, the scripture I twisted. You're my brother. Just my blood. If there's a God, He's in the love we rebuild. Forgive me, not for him, but for us. A postscript. I came out last night to my cellie. Screamed it at the walls. Your turn to lead. Tears blurred the ink. Hot tracks down Joshua's cheeks. The vulnerability hit like grace. The shamer. Stripped bare. But trust? That was a bridge half-burned. Marco noticed the shift that night. Their bunk a fragile truce. You okay? Me more? He asked. Voice tentative in the dark. Joshua turned. The letters weight in his chest. Maybe. For the first time. Their kiss was reconciliation, fiercer, laced with forgiveness's edge. Marco's hands roamed, mapping scars both seen and unseen, bodies entwining like roots seeking soil. We're all fucked up? Josh, Marco whispered against his neck. Rhythm building slow and sacred. But we choose who we fuck up with. Climax brewed in the shadows. Whispers turned to plots. The Aryans, smelling weakness in the brothers' thaw, conspired with Rico for a shakedown. It erupted in the showers, steam veiling the ambush, foreskins cornering Joshua, soap slick underfoot, Marco dragged off by guards on a bogus beef. Time to rinse that ferry off, the leader growled, blade glinting. Joshua fought dirty, elbow to throat, knee to groin, but numbers won. Pinned against tile, the knife pricking his side, panic clawed. Then chaos, Ethan bursting through, a human battering ram, tackling the leader with a roar that echoed biblical. This flew. Blood sprayed, Ethan's scar reopening. Joshua's lips splitting. Guards swarmed, batons cracking, hauling them all to the hole. Solitary was a black womb, sensory deprivation, days bleeding into nights. Joshua's mind replayed the fray, Ethan's back to his, a shield after years of swords. In the void, he penned his own confession on toilet paper scraps. Smuggled out via trustee, brother. I forgive. Not all the way. But enough to start. Love's not a punch, it's the stand-up after. Parole hearings loomed like distant thunder. Marco got his first, early release for good behavior. The favors, paying off bittersweet. Their goodbye in the visiting room was a gutting, hands pressed to glass. Promises of Route 1 etched in eyes. Wait for me, Joshua begged. Voice muffled. Marco nodded. Tear-streaked. Voice. Me, Joe. Ocean's waiting. Ethan's hearing followed. Denied, manslaughter hung heavy. But Joshua's? A miracle in paperwork. The robbery plea reduced. Good conduct stacking. The board's nod was anticlimax. Freedom a key turning slow. Out-processing day dawned foggy. The bay's breath a caress. Ethan walked him to the gates. Chains off but ghosts lingering. Right me, Ethan said. Grip fierce on Joshua's arm. And Josh? Proud of you. Always was. Deep down. Joshua pulled him into a hug, fierce. Unprisoned, the first in 15 years. So, Ethan. We'll rebuild. Stateside. The gate buzzed open. Pacific wind whipping free. On the bus to Oakland, Joshua unfolded a final note from Marco. Slipped in laundry, Route 1 starts now. See you at the shore. Tears fell, but they were clean. America stretched ahead, flawed. A canvas for second acts. Joshua breathed deep. The boy who'd been shamed stepping into light. Brother and lover echoes in his veins. Forgiveness wasn't erasure, it was the ink for new stories. And his? It was just beginning. The Greyhound rumbled south along I-80. The sprawl of the East Bay unfolding like a crumpled love letter, warehouses tagged with murals. Palm trees defiant against the chill November fog rolling in from the delta. Joshua slouched in the back. Duffel at his feet stuffed with commissary cast-offs, a dog-eared Steinbeck, prison-issue socks, and the weightless promise of Marco's note. His jumpsuit swapped for thrift store jeans and a hoodie that smelled of industrial detergent. But the ink of San Quentin lingered, tattooed in the way his shoulders stayed hunched, eyes scanning for threats in every shadow. Oakland welcomed him back with indifferent sprawl, BART trains screeching overhead, to carry a spilling cumin-scented steam onto cracked sidewalks. He crashed at a halfway house in Fruitvale. A sagging Victorian partitioned into cells of regret, men like him, fresh off the chain gang, chasing parole ghosts. A no-nonsense black woman named Lena with locks like coiled wisdom handed him a bus pass and a pamphlet, Reentry Roadmap, from bars to boulevard. First rule, she said. Eyes sharp as shears. Don't romanticize the joint. Not a trial by fire. But Joshua couldn't shake the embers. He'd wake sweating from dreams of concrete kisses. Marco's laugh echoing off cell walls. Ethan's bloodied knuckles shielding him in the steam. He wrote letters, real ones this time. Stamps licked with tentative hope. To Marco, now holed up in a Skid Row flophouse in LA. Painting murals for chump change, the ocean's bluer than you said. Drive up? We got miles to burn. Ethan? Still rotting in the rock, got a gig slinging lattes at a Temescal spot. Tipsuck? But the view's free, hills rolling like they forgive. Ethan's replies came sporadic. Smuggled via trustees, counseling's bullshit. But I'm trying. Dreamed of Fresno last night, us stealing Dad's truck for joyrides. Miss that kid version of me. The halfway house rules chafed, curfews at 9. Drug tests twice weekly. Group therapy circles where men spilled guts like overfilled dumpsters. Joshua sat silent at first, arms crossed, the circle's fluorescent glare dredging up old shames. But Lena had a way of prying. What's the one thing the system's blind to? Joshua? The heart shit. One Tuesday, under the hum of a dying fan. You correct. Love, he said. Voice gravel. Found it inside. Lost it faster. And family? That's the blade that twists slowest. The group leaned in, tats and track marks a common language. Tito, a tweaker from the mission with missing teeth, nodded. Brothers? Mine sold my stash to the cops for a plea. Blood's just thinner ink. Laughter rippled. Bitter as black coffee. And Joshua felt the thaw, a brotherhood not of bars, but of breaks. The barista gig was a grind, 4 a.m. Shifts at Brew Haven. A hipster haunt with exposed brick and pour-overs that cost more than his weekly grocery. Customers blurred, tech bros in Patagonia vests barking orders. Yoga moms with matcha lattes and unsolicited advice. You look like you've got stories, one said. A Silver Fox architect named Paul. Sliding a 10 extra in the tip jar. Joshua flushed. The flirtation a spark against dry tinder. Stories? More like scars. Paul lingered. Card tucked under the saucer. Coffee outside the cage? He didn't call. Not yet. Marco's shadow loomed too long. The betrayals echo a caution tape. Instead, Joshua poured himself into the city, knights wandering Lake Merritt, joggers and drummers a pulse against his isolation. The lake's edge was therapy, ripples whispering absolution under sodium lamps. One dusk, phone buzzing with a text from an unknown, out in 6 months. Got a mural gig in SF. Meet at the bridge? Paroled early on appeal. The system's whim as capricious as a king's. The reunion was electric, fraught as a storm front. Golden Gate fog-cloaked. They met at the South Vista, Ethan in civvies. Jeans faded. A flannel shirt unbuttoned over a thermal. Looking every bit the Texas transplant adrift in Cali cool. His hug was bone crush, reeking of cheap soap and relief. Christ. You're solid. Joshua pulled back. Scanning the changes, Ethan's eyes clearer. Jaw less clenched. A silver chain with a plain cross glinting, not preaching, but personal. They walked the span. Tourists oblivious. The bridge's cables humming like harp strings in the wind. Ethan spilled. The appeal? A pro bono lawyer from some queer rights outfit sniffing redemption. They dug up the fight, self-defense. Not manslaughter. Guy was a dealer. High as fuck. Then quieter, and I talked. In therapy. About us. About me. Joshua's step faltered. The admission a live wire. You told them? About the farmhand? Ethan nodded. Wind whipping his words. The more. The panic after. How I lashed at you to drown my own scream. He stopped at mid-span. Gripping the rail. Pacific churning below. I'm by. Just owned it. No more running. The vulnerability hung. Raw as the salt spray. And Joshua felt the old rage dissolve, not gone, but diluted, like ink in water. They talked till dusk bled to Navy, Fresno ghosts, prison phantoms, the chasm bridged by shared survival. I met someone, Joshua confessed. The words tentative. Not deep. But coffee. Ethan's grin was boyish. Unscarred. Could deserve it? Little bro. But if he's a dick, I got your back. No more shivs. Laughter bubbled. Genuine. The bridge a threshold. But shadows lengthened fast in November. Back in Oakland, the halfway house eviction loomed, 30 days post-parole. Then sink or swim. Joshua scraped rent on a studio in Diamond District. A shoebox with peeling wallpaper and a hot plate that sparked like bad omens. Paul became more than tips, dates at hole-in-the-wall faux joints. Hikes in Tilden Park where redwoods whispered secrets. Paul was steady, divorced dad. Architecture sketches in his Moleskine. Kisses that tasted of Merlot and midlife certainty. You're not your rap sheet, he'd say. Fingers tracing Joshua's scar. You're the plot twist. Yet doubt gnawed. Marco texted sporadically, gigs killer. Thinking of you. A photo attached, him mid-stroke on a tenderloin wall. Vibrant serifs rising from concrete decay. Joshua's heart twisted. The pull magnetic. Paul sensed it. One night over takeout pad thai. Ghosts? He asked. Gentle probe. Joshua nodded. Chopsticks idle. One big one. Love in lockdown. Fucked up? But real. Paul set his bowl down. Ice kind. Real don't mean right now. You've got space? Just fill it with you first. Ethan crashed on the couch that weekend. En route to a job corp in Sacramento, welding. Steady pay? A fresh start. They cracked beers on the fire escape. City lights twinkling like hesitant stars. Proud of this, Ethan said, gesturing to the shoebox. Our old man would have called it a palace. Nostalgia stung. But sweetly. Joshua pulled out the prison letters, reading aloud Ethan's pleas. His own retorts. We survived, he said. Clinking bottles. That's the win. But survival's fragile as bay fog. The call came at 2 a.m. Shattering glass sleep. Lena. Voice tight. Joshua. It's Ethan. Overdose. Fentanyl cut bad. He's at Highland, critical. The world funneled to a pinhole. Joshua bolted. Uber blurring streets slick with rain. Heart-hammering accusations, my fault? For forgiving too fast? Highlander was apocalypse, beeps and bleach. Families huddled like refugees. Ethan lay tubed and ashen. Monitors a dirge. The harried in scrubs. Pulled Joshua aside, laced batch from a worksite buddy. He's fighting, but touch and go. Joshua sank into plastic chair. Fist to eyes. The cross on Ethan's chain mocking from afar. Hours bled, dawn painting the window in bruised purple. Paul arrived uncalled. Coffee in hand. Silent sentinel. Heard from Lena, he murmured. Arm around Joshua's shoulders. Marco texted, on my way. Hold on. But it was Ethan's twitch, a finger curl, that anchored. Joshua leaned in, gripping that hand. The one that once shielded, once shamed. Don't you dare, brother. We got Route 1 waiting. Vigil stretched. A gauntlet of what-ifs. Ethan stabilized by noon, lungs cleared. Color creeping back, but the doc's warning lingered, rehab or relapse. Your call. Joshua made it in the hallway. Voice steel, rehab. Both of us, clean slate. Groggy in recovery. Nodded weak. Deal. No more running. Marco rolled in that eve. Mural dust on his boots. Hug enveloping. Missed you? Me, Joe. No jealousy flared, Paul watching with quiet grace. The four of them a makeshift constellation. Over vending machine chips. Stories swapped. Marco's LA hustles. Paul's kids' soccer games. Ethan's welding sparks. Laughter pierced the sterile. A rebellion. Discharge day was anticlimax. Ethan to a Salinas facility. Joshua back to the shoebox. But tethered now. Letters flew, Ethan's from rehab. Ink steadier, Marco's from SF gigs. Paint-flecked envelopes. Paul became fixture, nights cooking in the tiny kitchen. Bodies slow dancing to Coltrane on vinyl borrowed from the library. Winter deepened. Rains lashing the bay like tears unshed. Joshua stood at Lake Merritt one solstice eve. Water black as ink. Reflecting a man remade. Scars remained, cheeks pucker. Hearts lattice, but they mapped growth. Not graves. A text pinged, parole in 48. Meet at the beach? Ethan chimed, out next month. Brother road trip? Joshua smiled. Fog lifting. America? For all its fractures. Offered this, roads unspooled. Oceans endless. Love a verb you conjugated daily. He come out in prison, To himself. To blood. To the boy who'd pulled him from depths. Free. He stepped forward. The hook of hope pulling true. Spring cracked open the bay like a stubborn oyster. Reluctant pearls of sun glinting off puddle streets. Joshua's life settled into grooves worn smooth by routine. Dawn runs along the estuary, where egrets stabbed at mudflats like accusations forgotten, shifts at Brewhaven. Now with a raise and a name tag that read, Joshua, lead barista. Evenings with Paul, whose loft in Jack London Square smelled of sawdust and saffron. Blueprints unfurled like dreams on the drafting table. Paul's kid? Mia, a whip-smart 10-year-old with braids and a soccer cleat collection, took to Joshua slow, then fierce, dubbing him Uncle Jay after he coached her through a penalty kick in the park. "You're like a secret agent," she said, grinning gap-toothed. Sneaky good, but secrets simmered beneath. Marco's release loomed, a comic tale of anticipation and dread. Their texts had evolved, less heat, more hearth, finished the angel wall. "Wings for you." Joshua replied with photos of Paul's sketches. Ethan's rehab progress reports. "Wings sound right. Grounding here." Paul knew. Of course, nights when Joshua stared at the ceiling, tracing phantom tattoos. "He's part of your map," Paul said once. Over whiskey neat, his hand steady on Joshua's knee. "Doesn't mean he redraws it." Ethan's rehab was a crucible. Letters arriving fortnightly. Postmarked Salinas. Groups a circus. Tweakers preaching AA like televangelists. Miss the rock simplicity. Then, roar, dreamed of the showers. "You fighting. Me bleeding." Woke grateful. Joshua visited twice. The drive up 101, a meditation through strawberry fields and garlic blooms. Gilroy's stink, a punchline to their shared rot. The facility was low-slung adobe. Gardens manicured as therapy. Ethan emerged changed, leaner. Eyes luminous. The AA chip in his pocket like a talisman. 30 days clean, he announced. Up fierce. They walked the grounds. Orange groves heavy with promise. "Got a lead, parole officer hooked me with a carpenter gig in Fresno." Full circle? Huh. Joshua's throat tightened. Fresno. The trailer. Ghosts of their old man. Belt in hand. The prodigal fractures. Ethan nodded, plucking a blossom, twirling it absently. "Facing it. With you in my corner? Manageable." He paused. Gaze distant. "Josh. I'm dating. Guy from group. Ex-Marine. Builds furniture. Solid." The admission landed light. No wonder. Not proclamation. Pride weekend hit like confetti shrapnel. San Francisco's Castro pulsing with rainbows and bass lines. Joshua went with Paul and Mia, the three weaving through floats and feather boas. Mia's eyes wide at drag queens on stilts. "Is that like Halloween every day?" she asked, clutching a glitter wand. Paul laughed, lifting her to his shoulders. Joshua hung back a beat, the spectacle a mirror to his buried boy, bleachers fumbles. Ethan's cigarette flick. Then Paul's hand found his, squeezing. "Your world too. G." That night, post-parade beers at a dive with fairy lights strung like stars. Joshua's phone lit, touchdown tomorrow. "Beach at dawn?" M. Hart stuttered. He showed Paul. "Go," Paul said. Simple. Maps overlap sometimes. Dawn at Baker Beach was primal, waves gnashing cliffs. Golden Gate a silhouette in rose. Marco waited on driftwood. Canvas jacket saltstiff. A thermos steaming. Heroes. Grin splitting like sunrise. Mijo. The hug was homecoming. Musk and muscle. Heartbeats sinking to surf roar. They walked barefoot. Sand cold as confession. Marco spilled, LA's grind. Murals for nonprofits. A sponsor in AA keeping the demons leashed. Missed this, he said, gesturing vast. Unchained. Joshua nodded. The note's betrayal a scar itch. Not open wound. Missed you. But grew some roots. He spoke of Mia. Ethan's thaw, life's lattice. Woven tight. Marco stopped. Facing him. Eyes ocean deep. Roots good. But vines climb. Yeah. His kiss was question. Tentative, Joshua met it halfway. Salt lip sweet. A bridge not burned. They parted breathless. No promises. Just possibility. Stay in the bay? Joshua asked. Marco's smile. For the murals. And you? Ethan paroled a week later. The Fresno gig a reality. The send-off was backyard barbecue at Paul's, grill smoke curling. Mia bossing the playlist with Lizzo anthems. Ethan arrived in a truck bedecked with ladders. Flannel crisp. His Marine boyfriend. At his side, broad-shouldered. Quiet smile. Calluses that spoke volumes. Family, Ethan said. Raising a soda. Eyes on Joshua. To the ones we choose. Toast clinked. Laughter flowed, stories of prison hacks, commissary hacks for jerky. Rehab roast. Mia demanding Uncle E's magic tricks. As dusk fell, fireflies winking in the oaks, Joshua pulled Ethan aside. Proud of you, big bro. Ethan clapped his back. Ditto. Little. Couldn't without the shove. The summer unspooled lazy, Marco crashing Joshua's couch between mural jobs. Paul hosting game nights where Reyes schooled them in poker. Ethan weekend driving down for Fresno updates, the trailer raised. A duplex now. Ghosts evicted. Joshua thrived. The lead barista nod blooming to shift manager. Tips funding a used Civic for those Route 1 runs. With Marco, it was easy heat, nights tangled in sheets. Bodies relearning trust. His paint streaking the walls like abstract vows. Paul, steady harbor. Mia's drawings taped to the fridge, stick figure Joshua's with capes. But autumn winds carried undercurrents. Marco's sponsor called one crisp October Eve. Voice edged, relapse risk high. He's chasing old highs, gigs turning to parties. Joshua confronted gentle. Over tacos at a taqueria glowing neon. What's pulling you? Marco's fork stilled. Eyes down. The rush. Art's slow burn, streets are fire. Confession tumbled. A slip at a gallery opening. Coke lines blurred with champagne. One time. Swore off. Joshua's gut nodded. The prison notes echo. One time's the hook. Seen it swallow brothers. Marco reached. Desperate. Help me. Mijo. Like you helped him. The subtext a bridge to Paul's patience. The intervention brewed organic. Paul hosting. Reyes driving down. Ethan on speaker from Fresno. Circle in the loft. Coffee strong. Words sharper. Marco squirmed. Defiance cracking to sobs. I don't want to be that ghost again. Ethan's voice crackled. Then don't. We pull you through? Like showers. Reyes nodded. Arm around Ethan. Sponsors waiting in SF. Lean in. Marco chose rehab, voluntary. A nod to agency. Drop-off was quiet agony. Joshua's Civic idling outside the Marin Center. Hills gold as aspen. Route 1 when? Marco asked. Duffel slung. Joshua kissed him fierce. Dawn after dawn. Go climb those vines clean. Winter solstice brought convergence. Ethan and Reyes road-tripped for the holidays. The duplex in Fresno hosting, turkey brined. Mia's pie lopsided but loved. Paul proposed mid-feast. Ring simple, silver band etched with coordinates of their first hike. Partners? He asked. Knee not bent but eyes pleading. Joshua's yes was exhale. Tears salting the gravy. New Year's. They drove coastal, Civic top-down despite chill. Marco out and fragile. Shotgun with Reyes in back spinning tails. Ethan beside Joshua. Hand on gearshift. Full circle, he murmured. Ocean crashing applause. Bonfire at McWay Falls. Sparks to stars. They toasted, to shame's shed. Betrayals bridged. Loves layered like bay fog, then luminous. Joshua watched them, brother redeemed. Lover rising. Family forged, heart full as tide. Prison had been crucible. Not curse, coming out. Not in, but emergence. America, vast and veined, offered this mercy, stories rewritten, 1 mile at a time. The new year unfurled like a flag in fitful wind, resolutions crisp, then curling at edges. Joshua and Paul's commitment settled domestic, shared lease on the loft. Mia's room with glow stars and a bookshelf of dog-eared adventures. Mornings with espresso pulls and Paul's sketches pinned to corkboards. Marco's rehab stretched to 90 days. Letters arriving weekly, painting with words here, group art therapies wild. Monsieur Laugh. Ethan and Reyes dove into Fresno roots. The duplex blooming with reclaimed wood furniture. Weekend markets hawking jams and jerky. But harmony hummed undercurrents. Life's undertow tugging. At Brew Haven. Corporate whispers slithered, buyout rumors. Shifts cut for automation. Joshua's manager nod felt precarious. Tips thinning as techies swapped lattes for apps. It's the grind, Paul soothed one night. Over stir-fry in the loft's galley kitchen. Mia asleep to Encanto soundtrack. We'll pivot. Always do. Pivot came swifter than storm. Paul's firm landed a contract, sustainable homes for queer youth in the mission. Blueprints sprawling with tiny kitchens and rainbow accents. Your stories fuel this, he told Joshua. Pencil between teeth. Excitement sparked collaborations. Joshua volunteering weekends. Painting murals with at-risk kids. Marco's remote guidance via Zoom. Softer lines. Mijo. Let the pain breathe color. Ethan's call shattered the idle mid-march. Voice frayed as barbed wire, Reyes left. Caught me slipping, old hookup at a job site. Fucked it all. The duplex echo chamber of blame. A meeting skipped. The cross-chain pawned for a bottle. Joshua drove up that night. 99 freeway, a ribbon of taillights. Paul's hand on his thigh, silent support. Fresno greeted gray, drought-cracked earth. The old trailer lot now a weedy scar. Ethan answered hollow-eyed. Stubble silver-flecked. The duplex reeking of takeout and regret. Knew you'd come, he muttered, collapsing on the couch. A half-empty fifth on the coffee table. Joshua swept it to the sink, crash echoing like judgment. Not bailing. But this? It's the hook again. They talked till false dawn, Rhea's grace and exit. Ethan's by panic resurfacing like kudzu. The shame cycle spinning anew. I outed you to save me, Ethan confessed. Tears carving tracks. Now I'm outing myself to ruin. Joshua gripped his shoulders. Mirror to the showers. Then own it clean. Rehab round 2. With me driving. Ethan resisted. Then relented, brittle nod. The fight draining like pus from wound. Drop off at the same Selena spot. Irony thick, full fucking circle, Ethan rasped. Duffel heavy. Spring equinox brought rebirths layered. Marco discharged. Gaunt but glowing. Crashing the loft till steady. His first mural post-rehab, a phoenix on the youth center wall. Wings woven with faces, Joshua's scar. Ethan's cross. Paul's steady gaze. For the fledglings, he said. Brushstroke deliberate. Joshua at his side with paint-smeared hands. Paul's project flourished. Groundbreakings with ribbon cuts and news crews. Mia christened the first unit. Plaque reading Haven House, built for becoming. Joshua spoke at the dedication, voice steady. Words raw. These walls? They're for the boys we were shamed. Sidelined. But look, we rise. Applause thundered. Marco's eyes proud. Paul's arm anchor. Ethan's rehab yielded fragile fruits. Discharge to a halfway in Modesto. Welding cert in pocket. Sponsor a grizzled vet with no patience for pity. Weekend visits became ritual. Joshua towing him to AA meets in Oakland. Coffee after with Paul and Mia dissecting Avengers like scripture. Uncle E's like Thor, Mia declared. Hammer prop in fist. Beats the bad guys. Ethan ruffled her braids. Throat working. Trying. Kiddo. Summer solstice. They claimed Route 1 proper. Convoy of 2, Joshua's civic leading. Marco's shotgun. Paul and Mia in the bedazzled SUV with Ethan and a cooler of craft brews, non-LC for the Warriors. Big Sir Cliffs plunged to turquoise. Elephant seals bellowing like baritone chorus. Stops punctuated. Hearst Castle's excess a laugh riot. Julia Pfeiffer's Falls a misty vow renewal. Nights in Carmel cottages. Bonfires crackling stories. Prison hacks. Rehab roasts. Loves lost and latched. At Pfeiffer Point. Waves gnashing like old grudges. Ethan pulled Joshua aside. 6 months sober, he said. Chip glinting. Dating so. Barista in Modesto. Trans guy with a poetry slam side. Grin sheepish. Your influence. Little bro. Coming out clean. Joshua hugged him fierce. Salt wind whipping. Proud. Always. Fall's harvest brought harvest of hearts. Brew Haven folded to the buyout. Joshua's pink slip a gut punch. But severance bridged. Paul's firm boomed. Hiring him as community liaison. Outreach to ex-cons. Murals mandatory. Marco scored a gallery show in Soma. Phoenix series selling to collectors who wept at the walls. Your story in strokes, he told Joshua. Vernissage champagne bubbling. Thanksgiving anchored in Fresno. Duplex expanded with Reyes forgiveness. Tentative coffee. No hard feels. Tables groaning turkey and tamales. Mia's pie perfected. Toasts circled, to shames shed, to brothers' blood and chosen. Paul's ring caught firelight, Marco's hand in Joshua's lap warm promise. Winter's cusp. A curveball, Paul's ex. Mia's mom. Sued for custody, California's tangle of rights. Painting Paul unstable for the revolving door of partners. Court dates loomed. Affidavits stacking like indictments. Joshua testified first, voice steady in the fluorescent box. Paul's rock. Mia's world. Family. Marco backed. Sketches of their hearth. Ethan phoned in. Parole polish shining. Blood don't define. Love does. The judge ruled equitable, joint. With Paul's primary. The ex's barbs blunted by truth. Relief crashed like solstice wave. Loft party spilling to dawn. Lizzo blasting. Reyes grilling. Mia crown queen. New Year's Eve. Baker Beach Redux, full circle fire. Constellation complete, Paul toasting forever, Marco sketching embers. Ethan and Reyes entwined. Mia twirling sparklers. Joshua stood at the tide's edge. Water lapping ankles. Scars silver in moonlight. Prison's hook had reeled him deep. But he'd swum, out to light. Love's current carrying. America? For all its barbs. Bent to grace, stories not ended. But endlessly edited. His chapter? Open road. Brothers beside. Heartful sail.